much for tuning in. Welcome back to my channel. And yes, today I'm in conversation with Mr. Yasser Ussman. He's a journalist, a television producer, a film commentator, and he's received the famous Ramnath Goenka Award. We'll be talking to him on his works about Rekha, Rajesh, Khanna, Sanjay, Dutt, the biographies which he has written. So come, let us talk to him. Come. So my first question is that we all know you've written three of Rajesh Khanna, Rekha and Sanjay Dutt. So what is that one common link which you find in the three?
They are biographies, so they have not participated, my subjects, Rajesh Khanna or Rekha or Sanjay Dutt. So I have written biographies of these stars. Yeah, there is a common link. We all know them as stars, huge stars. I think they've not been great in the greatest of factors, yet their life story, the struggle, the rise, their downfall, and how they have come back in their life after so many setbacks. That was the intriguing part of their story. In case of Rajesh Khanna, it was the loneliness of a superstar. In case of Rekha, it was how everyone abused her initially when she came from Chennai, and how she became the star, won a national award for Raujan, and the comeback was very important. And of course Sanjay Dutt, because he was involved in that drug thing, and then his mother passed away after a long battle with cancer, and then his personal thing, the jail, the entire jail fiasco. So and yet, despite everything, people loved him. People still love him as a wonderful star. So that was the most intriguing part of their story. Is that despite every setback, the country loved them as stars. So what is the story behind that stardom? What's the mystery behind that stardom? I wanted to write about that.
And all three above them have been a rebel in some kind, in some part of their lives, like Sanjay Dutt, Rekha, or Rajesh Khanna. They didn't fit into that norm of the society which was there. Now, Sanjay Dutt, for example, had a life where he was productive. Now he's a family man, as we all know. So, when the youth read such biographies, they get more attracted to the bad rather than the good, and then they feel Sanjay Dutt, the drug addict, was a cool guy, so I should adopt to his ways. So, how good is reading such biographies of such rebel, albeit people who didn't fit into the norms? How good is it?
No, I don't look at it that way. I would rather say that if you have to read, I think this was just one phase of his life, an important phase, because it taught him a lot. Yet I would look at it at this phase of Sanjay Dutt's life as how he, how he was able to come out of it. That struggle part is very, very emotional. So it is. When I'm showing that he was taking drugs, I'm not glorifying it at all. I'm saying that drugs had harmed him, his family, and at the same time it coincided with the entire cancer battle of Nargis ji. So I am not glorifying it. I am, on the contrary, I'm telling everyone that okay, this is how the family was ruined during that phase, and how he decided that I need help. He told his father that I'll die of it, so please help me, otherwise मैं मर जाऊंगा. So that was the emotional core of it, and then Sunil Dutt took him to New York, and then the entire rehab episode of Sanjay Dutt leaving drugs. That was the most emotional part of this story. So I would rather like readers to look into that part of his life. And talking about Sanjay Dutt, the drug phase was a few chapters. It was more about his comeback. That book was more about his comeback. The book was more about how a father, Sunil Dutt Saab, he was also the hero of that book. That how Sunil Dutt and Nargis had like certain dreams about Sanjay Dutt, and how initially had broken those dreams, how he broke that dreams, and then again when Nargis passed away, Sanjay Dutt realized, no, this is not what they wanted me to be. So I have to be, a worthy son, and the entire comeback story, and that was the crux of that book. That was, of course, a few chapters, but not glorifying describing it in any manner. It was more about how did he win the battle against drugs. So that was the story.
Okay. So biographies, autobiographies especially mean that we as readers presume that the writer has spent a lot of time with the person on whom the autobiography is. Now, biographies which you have written, so how would you back your work in front of any biography which these people would have contributed to? How would you back your works?
The first step always, since I write unauthorized biographies, to get in touch with them or their family and tell them that I'm working on this project, I'm writing their story. So, would they like to speak? So, there are very few people who agree to this demand because mostly they want a PR kind of account to come out. So it becomes difficult for me, my research, and but it is always, for example, if we talk about my Rekha book, I got in touch with her. She refused to be a part of it. So it was very important that her voice is still there in the book. So I had to go back to the archive and look out for all her interviews, right from 1969 to say 2015. So there were hundreds of interviews. It was a long process. It became difficult because she refused to be a part of the book. Yet all those interviews she gave throughout her career, those were very important. So if I'm writing about any crucial event in her life, I had to go back to the interviews of those times where she had clearly spoken about those events in detail. It is even better because if she decides to talk now, she may not remember so many minute details. So at that time, say in 1976, if she's talking about something, it was in detail and it was public. So the research becomes difficult. Yet it is more interesting to read those interviews and you use that voice in my book. So it's a very interesting format. If you go through that book or my other books, it's a very interesting format because on every important event of their life, if the voice is there in those chapters. And then it's like something happened in 1976. So a month later, they gave an interview to say a certain magazine or a newspaper, and I have pulled out those interviews and used their voice in the chapters. And plus, this is about their voice, but also the process involves talking to the filmmakers they have worked with, their close friends, their co-stars. So it's everyone who has worked with these stars. So their memories, their stories, their anecdotes. So it's a very rich, three-dimensional, image of that star. So and very very entertaining also. Like I like to write my books as films, visual, simple, pacey, and interesting. So that is how the format works. It's a lot of hard work, but yeah, I do it. I love Hindi cinema and I love these stars, their stories. So I do this kind of hard work always.
And if you had to choose between these three stars to play online, who would you choose and why would you choose?
Oh my God, no! I am not an actor. I just love watching films. So I don't know. No, I would. I think the most intriguing story out of these three is Rekha ji's story. But I can't play Rekha, of course. But then Rajesh Khanna, of course. That kind of start and then downfall. Very very interesting story.
What was the part of Rekha's story which would really intrigue you?
Why did I write that story? It's a very interesting backstory. I was in school. One day I came back from school. My mother, while giving me lunch, told me that Rekha has killed her husband. So, and we used to talk a lot about Bollywood in those days. So that statement kind of remained with me, and I always believed that okay, she killed her husband and everything. That was the narrative in 1990. Years later, when my first book, Rajesh Khanna biography, was published, I was I was at a dinner party somewhere, and this gentleman, this senior police officer, we were just discussing film stars and biographies, and I just there was a picture of a photograph in his drawing room of Rekha and her ex-husband. Uh, the same person about whom my mother told me Rekha had killed her husband. So I told this gentleman, I said, okay, this is the same person, Rekha. And he said, no, no. And then he laughed and he told me the real story. And then I realized how wrong was the narrative in 1990 when everyone in the media blamed Rekha for, her husband had committed suicide. Rekha was not in picture. She was not even in the city. He was a Delhi businessman and having problems in their marriage, and there was a separation sort of thing going on. And then he was depressed and he committed suicide, and the entire media was against Rekha, that she is responsible for his death. So this is, and I said, oh my God, this is something very few people know about Rekha. So my book begins with that incident, and then how she became a reclusive diva, like we know her now, that she doesn't speak with the press or the media, and she doesn't go to many parties. But was she like that before this incident happened? No, she wasn't, because all her interviews before 1990 were like full of there was a certain style, how she functioned, how she gave her interviews. They were really, really interesting interviews. And then after this incident, her life completely changed. So this was a very important theme in her life, that through that story, to delve into Rekha's life and her struggles. She came from Chennai as a 15-year-old. Her language was Tamil and Telugu. And then 15 years later, she won a national award for Umrao Jan speaking impeccable Urdu. So that was the journey of an underdog becoming a superstar. So big that I think initial years of 1980s, she was bigger even than her male counterparts. She was a major star. If she was there in the film, she was the biggest star. So there was a phase in her life. So that was a mind-blowing journey from an ordinary girl, a 15-year-old girl who was pulled out of her school in standard 9 and pushed into the film industry, where she was ridiculed, she was humiliated, and yet she rose like a phoenix. That was the story I wanted to write.
And my last question is that these works which you write, they come with a lot of legal baggage with them.
Yeah.
You can, put legal complications. So what puts you back, and how do you deal with that?
When I'm telling you these stories, they may sound like gossip, they may sound like masala stories, but at the same time, that's truth. That's what happens in the life of stars, and the lives are widely covered. But since I write biographies and it's a non-fiction thing, it's a non-fiction format, I have to be very, very, I can't go wrong with details or facts. It has to be factual. Everything supported by either by interviews or sources or statements from the subjects or their family, friends, or filmmakers. So, and even after writing those pages, those 70,000 words, 80,000 words, the manuscript has to go through a legal check, a lawyer. So a lawyer goes through the entire manuscript, each and every word, each and every sentence, and then the lawyer suggests changes. This is how the process goes, and it goes on for months. Like after you write a book for almost 1 year, and then it goes through a legal check for say 2 months, 3 months. So it's a long process. It's not easy. It may sound easy because you just see a book and you see, okay, he has narrated certain stories about the stars, some masala stories, some emotional stories from their personal lives and professional lives. But mostly they're facts, because you can't play with the non-fiction format, and it has to go through a legal check. You have to be very, very, you can't go wrong with that.
Thank you so much.